Hi, I'm Rahel Philipose and you are listening to Three Things, the Indian Express News Show. In this episode, we talk about the Karnataka government's scheme of providing free travel for women on buses across the state. We also give you an update about the row over former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey's comments on India. But first, we talk about changing patterns of terror in Jammu and Kashmir. Over the last 3 decades, Jammu and Kashmir has witnessed widespread incidents of violence and terror attacks. Of these, a majority of the high-profile incidents have been reported in the Kashmir Valley. But data for the last 3 years points to a rapidly changing terror landscape in Jammu and Kashmir. The data was accessed by the Indian Express's Amrita Nayak Dutta, and she told us more about it.
When we talk about the changing pattern of terrorism in J&K, one of the important points that stood out for me was that since 2021, these 3 districts of Jammu region, namely Poonch, Rajouri and Jammu, they have seen fewer but more high visibility and, what army officers call it, visually grand terror attacks when compared to the strikes in the valley.
She says that of the 251 terrorist-initiated incidents in Jammu and Kashmir since January 2021, just 15 took place in the 3 districts of the Jammu region. But these 15 attacks ended up inflicting the maximum damage.
So this shows that while the number of incidents is drastically low in the areas south of Pir Panjal, but the scale and the magnitude and the visibility of the incidents that took place in south of Pir Panjal was far greater.
She says that the latest attack in this regard took place on the 5th of May when 5 army personnel were killed in the Rajouri district of Jammu.
And just 2 weeks earlier, on April 20, 5 soldiers were killed when their truck was ambushed in Poonch. And if you look at last year, August 2022, 5 soldiers were again killed in a terror attack in a military camp in Rajouri. And in October 2021, terrorists had killed 9 soldiers, including a JCO in the forest between Bhataduria and Deraki Gully in 2 separate encounters. And this is what I told you is just on security personnel. There have been some high-profile attacks on civilians too. On December 16, 2 civilians were killed in a firing outside an army camp in Rajouri. And on December 1st, 2nd, 7 villagers were killed in an attack in the Upper Dhangri area of the district. So if you just look at these data, you will see the number of attacks are less, but the number of casualty costs is much more. 5 soldiers killed in practically every attack. And most importantly, there have been very little identifications, or the terrorists have kind of fled. India could not really identify who were behind these attacks and could not really catch them, except a couple of incidents where 1 or 2 terrorists were killed.
According to Amrita, a big reason why these regions are witnessing a surge in high-profile terror attacks has to do with their location. Poonch, Rajouri and Jammu are all located to the south and west of the Pir Panjal mountain range that separates them from the districts in the valley.
So while this is not something new, because before we got into a ceasefire agreement with Pakistan, the number of ceasefire violations along the line of control, that used to be always higher in regions south of Pir Panjal than north of Pir Panjal. And there are some other factors too. For example, the presence of 2 main roads passing through this region, like the Jammu-Srinagar Highway and the Old Mughal Road that connects Poonch in Jammu to Shopia in the valley via the Pir Panjal Pass. And the entire lay of the land, which is characterized by forested hills of lower altitude. These are some of the reasons why this area is more likely targeted by the terrorists.
And because these regions are easier to access, Amrita says there's been an uptick in the number of foreign terrorists in both the Jammu region as well as in the valley, as opposed to the local ones. In fact, data also showed that the local recruitment of terrorists in the Union Territory has been reducing since 2020.
So the number of foreign terrorists in the valley had gone up significantly in the last 3 years. That is something that stood out for me in this data. This also shows that possibly because of the lay of land, as I just mentioned, the heights of lower altitude, it is the area south of Pir Panjal, they offer easy and all-weather infiltration routes. As a result, the terrorists who come in from the other side of the LOC, they also lack adequate logistic support in this region. So what they do is, the hardened terrorists, they infiltrate from this region, they carry out an attack and they disappear in the valley. So this is another trend which I have seen and which is adequately substantiated by this data, which shows 71 foreign terrorists were present in the valley in May 2023, which is a significant increase.
Amrita says that the security establishment has taken note of this changing trend. And to counter these higher impact, high intensity strikes, security in the Jammu and Kashmir region has been ramped up considerably.
There were initially plans of removing some of the Rashtra Rifle battalions from this region, especially because it was considered that there is peace in the region. But I think to my latest knowledge, that is not taking place immediately. So yes, all the RR, the existing RR, they are going to be there. And yes, security has been significantly ramped up. There was aggressive search operations that had taken place. And with the G20 taking place over there, security was very, very high in the recent months.
And next, we talk about Karnataka. On Sunday, the newly formed Congress-led Karnataka government started providing free travel for women on buses across the state. And within 2 days of implementing the scheme, more than 46 lakh women availed the free bus service. The scheme, known as Shakti, was one of the major poll promises of the Congress party when the state went to elections in May. To know more about this and how it aims to help women in Karnataka, my colleague Utsa Sarmin speaks to the Indian Express's Kiran Parashar.
So Kiran, can you first tell us why the Congress government decided to implement the free bus ride scheme in the state?
So, Utsa, considering that Karnataka has 45 to 50% of women in by guarantees, the promise that was made by the Congress party prior to the assembly elections, one among them was providing free bus facility for women. So, if you see the entire Karnataka population is about 7 crores, and even if you see like 3.5 crores population is voting, nearly 50% of them are women. So in order to attract women, it was one of the poll promises that was made by Congress party. So here, this specific scheme called Nari Shakti or Shakti scheme, that really made a difference for Congress, as they were able to get more number of votes from the women especially.
Right, and can you tell us how many women are expected to benefit from this scheme and how do we think it will help them?
So all women in Karnataka state are eligible to avail this scheme. It is estimated that somewhere around 41 lakh women, including all these 11.58 lakh pass holders, would be benefited by this scheme. So women can travel in any of the ordinary buses, city buses, and even in express buses. And the total number of buses count comes up to some 18,609 buses without paying any kind of money across the state. They can travel across the state. So one of the factors that the government and even the think tank of the Congress thought was this scheme would increase the employment percentage of women or participation of women in works. For example, if some women who is part of unorganized sector, if the transport facility is provided for free, she will be encouraged to participate, and the women employment is likely to or expected to increase by 5 to somewhere 10% because of this scheme. Also, another thing usually all these Congress leaders say is, so if the money is with the women, generally or largely, it is used for the benefit of the family at most of the times than in men, is what, when I was speaking to some of the Congress think tanks, this is what they told me. So this is in a way is to encourage women education, women participation in jobs and employment, and bringing women to mainstream.
Okay, and have there been any concerns about how this scheme will be properly implemented and how much it will cost the state government?
So the thing is, the moment Congress came to power, after the appointment of Siddaramaiah as the chief minister, so the first thing that he asked was to submit a report on the financial ramifications on implementing this scheme. So this was the first report that he sought from all the concerned departments. Whereas likewise, the Road Transport Corporation in Karnataka also submitted their memorandum, which says that an annual cost to implement this scheme would be somewhere around 4,051 crores. So this money has to be entirely taken care by the state government so that the operations will run hassle-free. Because as we all know, already the Karnataka run road transport of these buses are in kind of a loss. So they are like, for example, last year, the overall from April 2022 to March 2023, the loss of gross revenue was somewhere around 197 crores. So it reported loss, but now this is going to increase to 4,051 crores. So it now depends on how the government will handle its account.
And how is the Siddaramaiah-led government planning to bear this cost?
So basically they are trying to divert funds. For example, they are likely to increase couple of probably the registration tax or even the excise duties and other things. They might increase that in the upcoming days. And in order to cater funds for all these 5 guarantees they had assured, which is going to cost somewhere around 47,000 to 50,000 crores, they will have to bring money. And also the Karnataka Chief Minister has been repeatedly saying that he will demand center to give Karnataka states in GST, which has been a long-standing demand.
Right, and Kiran, the scheme was implemented on Sunday. So do we know how the women in the state have responded to it so far?
So on Sunday, when the scheme was inaugurated, it was around 12 noon. When the Chief Minister himself gave the first ticket to Karnataka Chief Secretary Vandita Sharma, who happens to be a woman, and she took a free bus ride. So being Sunday, there were about 571,023 women passengers who travelled under the scheme, and the ticket value of these women passengers who travelled, it stood somewhere around 1 crore 40 lakhs. So on Monday, if you see, Monday being the working day, so the numbers increased to a staggering 41,34,726 women passengers took bus under this scheme, and the total value was somewhere around 8.83 crores in a single day. So if we look at the numbers, it explains to you there has been a great response, but we need to also check if the Road Transport Corporation had maintained any data regarding like how was the women traveling before the implementation of this scheme. But this number seems to be big.
And Kiran, after the scheme was implemented, this particular photo featuring a woman went viral online. Could you talk about who this person was?
So what happened was, so soon after this scheme was introduced, one 70-year-old woman, Ningava Shigadi, so she was planning to take a bus ride from Dharwad to Saudati. She said that earlier, whenever she used to travel, she had to seek money from her children and also get permission, and also has to explain why she's traveling, what is the purpose and other things. So with a free bus ride, now she believes that she doesn't have to give all this explanation to her children. And when she was told to enter the bus, she bowed down to the bus very happily. And after that, she got a free bus ride. And even Siddaramaiah also posted the photo on the Facebook, which went viral. So he said that this photo will remain in my memory for a long time. And it is also very important to know like where we are investing the money or where we are diverting the funds than how much money that we are investing on any schemes or funds. So this photo became a symbol of this Stri Shakti scheme.
And could you talk about what the opposition has been saying about this scheme during this time?
So BJP initially was opposing the move of Congress or the guarantees that were made by Congress, saying that it cannot be implemented. It is not viable as considering the cost, because it ran somewhere up to 50,000 crores. So BJP then criticized Congress and said that this is going to also affect the exchequer of the state and all these things. But once the election results came out and Congress managed to win with a good majority, soon after that BJP started demanding to implement these schemes. So they even had plans to stage a protest demanding to implement these schemes across Karnataka on June 1st. But prior to that, soon after he took charge, Siddaramaiah held a meeting and also took the details of the cost that is involved to implement these schemes. And soon after that, he announced the dates and rolled it. And of the 5 guarantees, this is one of the first which have been already implemented.
And in the end, we give you an update on the Twitter row. On Monday, during an interview to YouTube channel Breaking Points, former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey revealed that the platform received many requests from the Indian government to block accounts covering farmers' protests and accounts of those who are critical of the government.
India is a country that had many requests of us around the farmers' protest, around particular journalists that were critical of the government. It manifested in ways such as we will shut Twitter down in India, which is a very large market for us. We will raid the homes of your employees, which they did. We will shut down your offices if you don't follow suit. And this is India, a democratic country.
Minister of State for Electronics and IT, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, responding to Dorsey's claims, said that under him, Twitter was in repeated and continuous violations of Indian law and at times weaponized misinformation.
Jack Dorsey was the CEO of Twitter during a very, very dubious period in Twitter's history. What he has said is an outright lie, and I have said that publicly and I'm reiterating it again. Twitter is a company that believed that it was not necessary for it to comply with Indian law. It believed that it did not have to comply with Indian law and made up its rules as it went along. And the government of India has been very clear from the very beginning for all companies that operate in India, they have to always comply with Indian law. Between 2020...
The claims by Dorsey have now triggered a political row, with the opposition Congress seeking answers from the centre and alleging murder of democracy. While speaking at a press conference on Monday, the Congress's social media head, Supriya Srinath, expressed concerns about the manipulation of social media platforms.
मर्डर ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी में मर्डर ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी लगातार कैसे किया जा रहा है, उसी को उजागर करने का, उसी सच को बताने का है. यह सच है कि जब इस देश का अन्नदाता अपने हक की लड़ाई लड़ रहा था, तो इस देश के प्रधानमंत्री उनका दमन कर रहे थे, उनकी आवाज को दबाने की कोशिश कर रहे थे.
Meanwhile, Sanjay Raut, an MP from Uddhav Thackeray's Shiv Sena, said that the democracy of the country and freedom are under threat.
इस देश में डेमोक्रेसी, इस देश की हमारी स्वतंत्रता कैसे खतरे में है और पर्दे के पीछे डेमोक्रेसी का कैसा गला घोटा जा रहा है, तो उससे स्पष्ट होता है.
Farmer leader Rakesh Tikhet also commented on the whole issue and said that the protesting farmers had realized that their Facebook posts and tweets would not reach as many people as it should have during the protests.
उस टाइम पे भी भारत सरकार ने ये हमको जानकारी थी कि जितने रिच फेसबुक और ट्विटर पे आने चाहिए किसानों मूवमेंट के, वो नहीं आ रहे, और ये लोकल स्तर पे रोकने की कोशिश करते थे. और जो इसको मालिक था उसने...
At the height of the farmers' protest in the country in 2021, the centre had asked Twitter to take down nearly 1,200 accounts for alleged Khalistan links. Before that, it had asked the platform to take down more than 250 accounts. Twitter had responded by blocking some of the accounts, but subsequently unblocked them, citing freedom of speech on its platform. And last year in July, Twitter initiated legal action against some of the government communications, which ordered the platform to take down certain content posted on the microblogging site. Alleging disproportionate use of power by officials, the social media company moved the Karnataka High Court against the ministry's orders, which were issued under Section 69A of the Information Technology Act of 2000. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was hosted by me, Rahel Philipose, and written and produced by Utsa, Sarmin, Shashank, Bhargava, and me, Rahel Philipose. It was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone who you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.